She kissed him before the appetizers arrived. Right there, at our table, with my name on the reservation, with the candlelight flickering between their faces, not mine and hers. I didn't even sit down yet. The waiter, poor guy, looked at me like he was the one who owed me an explanation. My hands were still in my coat pockets, fingers wrapped around the velvet box I'd been carrying for 3 weeks. Inside it, a silver bracelet engraved with the coordinates of where we got married. I thought it would make her cry. You know, the good kind of cry. Instead, she kissed someone else. Then she looked at me, not guilty, not scared, just prepared. I wanted you to meet Ezra, she said, like she was introducing me to a dog she found on the street. Ezra, the man sitting in my seat, wearing a navy blazer so tight it looked like it was stitched onto his arrogance. He gave me this polite, pitying smile like he thought I might try to fight him, or cry, or beg. I did none of those things. Instead, I pulled out the chair across from them and sat down slowly. I didn't say a word. Neither did they. She broke the silence first. I think we should consider an open marriage, she said, like she was proposing a new color scheme for the living room. Ezra nodded like some kind of emotional support puppet. My throat burned. Not because I was angry, not yet, but because I still loved her. Because part of me wanted to believe this was a joke. A performance. Something she'd apologize for in 30 seconds. But the wine was already poured. The food was already ordered. And I realized something, sitting across from them. The affair had already been happening. This wasn't her asking for permission. This was her declaring a merger. And the way I handled it? Let's just say, it started with a smile and ended with someone locked out of their own bank accounts. But we'll get there. She called it evolving. That was the word she used, as if I were a Neanderthal clutching a rock while she levitated above modern marriage. I'm not cheating, she said as Ezra gently placed a hand on her thigh, in front of me. I'm being honest about my needs. That's growth, Lowell. Growth. As if betrayal could be gift-wrapped in self-help buzzwords and served with salmon carpaccio. I stared at the couple across from me, the woman I shared a bed with and the man who looked like he rehearsed being smug in the mirror every morning. Neither of them flinched when I pulled out the bracelet box and slid it across the table toward her. For a second, I thought I saw something in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? No. It was confusion. She honestly didn't understand why I brought a gift to our anniversary dinner. Elira, I said quietly, I don't want an open marriage. I want my marriage. She blinked. Then maybe you're not the man I married. That stung. Not because it wasn't true. I wasn't the same man. I was tired now. Suspicious. Humiliated in my own name. But mostly, I was awake. Ezra reached for the wine, casually swirling it like he belonged there. I think you're being reactive, Lowell. This doesn't have to be adversarial. Adversarial? I wasn't even sure I was awake. The room felt like a dream stitched together by my worst insecurities. I wondered how long they'd been planning this. Weeks? Months? Maybe he was at our house when I was working late. Maybe he'd used my shower. Maybe he'd sat in my spot on the couch. I didn't touch my food. I didn't touch my drink. All I touched was my phone. She didn't know it yet, but 3 days earlier, when I first noticed her changing her passwords, I installed a backup recovery tool on our shared devices. Nothing invasive. Nothing illegal. But I'd seen enough. And what I saw told me tonight was coming. I just didn't expect it to happen this way. I'm going home, I said, standing. Elira tilted her head like I was being dramatic. Can we at least finish the meal? I already lost my appetite, I said. Apparently, so did you for me. I turned and walked out. No theatrics. No screaming. Just footsteps that felt heavier than they should have been. Outside, it was raining. Of course it was. Like some director in the sky decided to drive the point home. I stood under a street lamp, staring at the pavement, breathing through my teeth. And then, like clockwork, her text came through. I'm sorry if that felt harsh. But this is where I am. I hope we can still talk. No apology. No accountability. Just where I am. Like she was updating her location on a map. I didn't reply. Not to that one. But what I sent the next day? That shook her little polyharmony fantasy to its core. The door was unlocked when I got home. That told me everything. She never forgets to lock it. Unless she wants me to see something. Or someone. Her heels were by the door. But only one coffee mug in the sink. One toothbrush on the holder. One towel on the hook. She'd already prepped the house like she didn't live here anymore. That was the moment I knew. Elira hadn't suggested an open marriage. She had already moved on. The anniversary dinner was just her form of closure, a twisted, performative way of saying goodbye without actually having to say it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had already logged into our cloud storage 2 days ago. There were folders she thought were private. She must have assumed I'd never look, but she forgot something. I handle compliance for a living. Data isn't romantic to me. It's just leverage. She had saved pictures, screenshots, entire conversations with Ezra. They weren't just talking about feelings. They were planning logistics. He'd help her move into his place by next month. She was negotiating who would keep the cat. My cat, by the way, before we even met. Worse, she had notes for how to pitch the open marriage to me. In one doc, she'd literally written, "Frame it as empowering, not cheating. If he panics, shift focus to how trapped you feel. Avoid blame." She rehearsed how to manipulate me. I spent the rest of the night calmly erasing myself from the joint systems she didn't even realize I controlled. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just reclaiming what was mine. I removed my access from our shared finances, updated passwords, rerouted my paychecks to my personal account, and backed up every document she probably assumed I didn't care about. The only message I sent her that night was a single sentence, just before midnight. "You might want to check your accounts before you call yourself free." She didn't reply, but the next morning, the knocking on the door started before sunrise. She was banging on the front door like I'd stolen her child. At 6:12 a.m., not calling, not texting, just hammering her fists against the wood like a cop with a warrant. I took my time getting to the door, made coffee, turned on the lamp, sat on the couch, and waited until her pounding became less rage and more desperation. When I finally opened it, she was shaking. Not crying. Not yet, but close. Makeup smeared. Phone in hand. Panic radiating off her like heat. "What the hell did you do to the accounts?" she snapped, pushing past me without permission. I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee and gestured toward the living room like I was entertaining a guest, not greeting the woman who'd humiliated me in front of her boyfriend. She whirled around to face me. "All the passwords are changed. My auto payments are bouncing. My Venmo's frozen. Ezra can't even book our flights now." Flights. That word was a bullet. "Oh," I said, tilting my head. So this really was a goodbye dinner. She didn't deny it. Didn't even pretend anymore. "I told you," she hissed. "We could have evolved together. You chose war." I laughed too hard, too loud. "You brought another man to our anniversary and told me it was growth. I moved some money and changed a few passwords. And I'm the one who chose war?" She started pacing. "You're acting unstable, Lowell." "No," I said, standing up now, calmer than I'd ever felt. "I'm just not playing your script anymore." She tried another angle, the softer voice, the hand on my arm, the sad eyes. "This wasn't the plan, Lowell. You were supposed to be understanding. You always try to keep the peace." I stepped back. "Exactly. Tried. Past tense." She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but then her phone dinged. A new notification. She looked down and froze. Her expression cracked, like glass under pressure. I knew what she saw. The email I'd sent at 4:37 a.m., BCC'd to both of our families, to her book club friends, to her yoga group. A polite, concise message explaining that we were separating, effective immediately, due to her desire for a non-monogamous life and her months-long relationship with a man named Ezra. No slander. No insults. Just facts. Backed by screenshots. She looked up at me, mouth trembling. "You humiliated me." "No," I said. "You did. I just took away your illusion of privacy." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat on the armrest of the couch like a marionette with cut strings. Ezra, her escape plan, wasn't answering her calls anymore. I knew, because I'd seen the messages. He wasn't prepared for exposure. She thought she was trading up. Turns out, she was jumping ship, without a raft. She came back the next evening. Not to apologize. Not to fix anything. But to clarify. That's the word she used when I opened the door and saw her standing there in full damage control mode. Hair brushed, lips pressed tight, like she was walking into a courtroom. "I just want to understand," she said, forcing her way into the living room again like this was still her home. "What exactly did you say to my mother?" I didn't even pretend to be confused. "I told her the truth," I said flatly. "That you introduced me to your boyfriend over linguine and then requested an open marriage with dessert." She winced. You didn't need to make it sound that dramatic. You brought another man to our anniversary dinner, Elira. That's already dramatic. She sat down, clearly rattled. Her phone buzzed nonstop. She silenced it without looking. I knew who it was. Our mutual friends, her sister, probably even Ezra. Word was spreading. Because I didn't lie. I didn't yell. I didn't trash her on social media. I just pulled back the curtain and let everyone see the show she had been directing behind my back. She tried to lean into guilt again. Said her mother cried. Said Ezra was reconsidering his situation and hadn't spoken to her since the email. She wanted sympathy. She wanted me to feel bad that her little fantasy was collapsing in slow motion. But all I could think about was that bracelet in the drawer upstairs, the one I never got to give her. I never thought you'd stoop to this, she muttered. I almost laughed. You cheated, lied, humiliated me in public, and then expected silence. Why? Her answer? Chilling. Because you're not the kind of man who fights back. And she was right. I wasn't. Until now. It started with a message request from someone I didn't recognize. Profile picture, a hiking trail, username, initials, and numbers. I almost deleted it without reading. I wish I had. But curiosity wins when your life's been flipped inside out. So I opened it. The message simply read, Hey, I think we need to talk. Your wife sent my wife screenshots. I stared at it for a full minute before responding. And even then, all I typed was, Who are you? Turns out, Ezra wasn't exactly the loyal, open relationship guru he pretended to be. He was married, or had been married, until Elira decided to send his wife a series of proofs to somehow justify their relationship, complete with timestamped texts and a few photos I never wanted to see. The woman messaging me, her name was Sada, had just filed for divorce. She was calm, collected, scary calm actually, said she had no interest in drama, just facts. And, if I was willing, an exchange of timelines. That's when everything snapped into place. I had been wondering why Ezra went silent. Why Elira's phone buzzed with growing desperation. Turns out, Ezra wasn't just ghosting her. He was losing everything. His wife, his house, partial custody of his 2 kids. And the best part? He had no idea that I was the one who helped Sada gather everything she needed. I sent her the backups, the receipts, even a video clip Elira had once saved in our shared Google Drive and forgotten to delete. The one where Ezra bragged about how some guys get stuck with boring wives. I just take them. That clip never sat right with me. But now, it was ammunition. Elira showed up again 2 days later. This time, she was quiet. No screaming. No demands. Just a whisper. What did you do? I looked her in the eye and said what I should have said weeks ago. I stopped protecting people who were never protecting me. She didn't cry until the charity gala. We hadn't spoken in nearly a week. I thought maybe she'd finally given up trying to twist it back on me. But no, Elira doesn't let go when the performance isn't finished. And this time, the audience was real. It was a yearly fundraiser her company sponsored, full of wine, velvet gowns, name tags, and fake smiles. I wasn't going to go, but my name was still on the guest list. And a part of me wanted to see what she looked like without control. She spotted me from across the room. I saw the flicker of panic before she smoothed her face and started toward me like we were still married. I almost didn't recognize her, not because she looked different, but because I'd never seen her try this hard to act normal. Lowell, she said, all teeth and charm. Glad you made it. I didn't respond. I just nodded and took a sip of sparkling water, watching her hands shake as she held her wine. We made small talk in a dead language, polite, practiced, empty. But then a woman stepped forward from behind the silent auction table. Dark hair, fierce eyes, calm like a scalpel. Sada. She didn't yell, didn't cause a scene. She just walked up, placed an envelope into Elira's hand, and said, loud enough for the donors nearby to hear, You might want to read that before you pitch any more partnerships. Elira froze. I watched her knuckles whiten around the envelope. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. Inside was the list of clients who had quietly pulled their sponsorships after seeing the email chain. Sada's lawyer, now her ex-husband's ex-lawyer, had included a summary of potential defamation exposure from Elira's earlier attempts to spin the story her way. Apparently, calling Ezra's wife unstable in writing was a bad move. That was when Elira finally cracked. Not a full sob, not yet, but her lip trembled, and she muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. I thought you'd cover for me. I looked at her. The woman who'd once slept beside me, who knew how I folded laundry and cried at documentaries. And all I said was, "You stop being someone I could cover for." She didn't follow me when I walked out, but someone else did. And what they told me, that's when everything, and I mean everything, turned. He waited for me just outside the venue. One of Alira's co-workers, actually. We'd met once at a company picnic years ago. Back then, he was just the IT guy who brought his own chair to the barbecue. I barely remembered his name. Now, he was holding a USB drive. "I probably shouldn't be doing this," he said. "But I saw what she tried to do to you. And I don't like watching decent people get erased." I took the drive. Didn't even ask what was on it. I already knew. Office messages, calendar entries, her internal memos. All of it confirming she'd been planning to phase me out long before the dinner with Ezra. She hadn't fallen into an affair. She'd scheduled one. But honestly, I didn't feel angry anymore. Because by then, I'd already signed the divorce papers. Quietly, cleanly. No messy court battle. Just signatures, notarized. Assets divided with surgical precision. She lost more than she expected. I didn't take revenge. I took clarity. A week later, I moved out of the house. Took the cat. Left the bracelet behind. I got a small apartment across the city. Nothing fancy. Just mine. A cheap couch, decent coffee maker, sunlight that hits the floor at just the right angle around 9 a.m. It's peaceful. One morning, I got a message from Sada. Just a photo, her hiking again. Alone this time. No caption. But I understood. Another morning, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't Alira. It wasn't drama. It was my neighbor, Sophia. We'd exchanged awkward hellos in the hallway, but this time, she held a toolbox and asked if I knew how to install a shelf. I did. Barely. But she smiled when it wobbled. And I smiled when she offered coffee in mismatched mugs. We didn't talk about broken marriages or betrayal. We talked about movies. Bad takeout. The kind of stuff you don't have to rehearse. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel replaced. I just felt free.